So for those of you who like coding with Cursor, Cursor 3 just came out, and this is a pivotal change of the user experience of how we do coding. If you've been coding for a while, you know that the traditional way is managing your file on the left with the file tree browser, and then you actually edit the code files. But now with agentic coding becoming more prevalent, and also the models are becoming much more powerful and intelligent, it makes sense to kind of shift the way that we do coding to focus more on managing multiple projects, having concurrent agents running, and kind of center around that user experience. So what I'm going to show you in this video is kind of give you an overview of Cursor 3 and the changes based on what Cursor used to be. But before I dive into that, I do want to say I have a course called Agentic Jumpstart. You can go to agenticjumpstart.com where I have over 13 hours of content teaching Cursor, teaching Claude Code, teaching how to do prompting, and all these other things that you're going to need when you're dealing with agentic coding. So go check out agenticjumpstart.com. I do think it's a great value to really jumpstart your agentic coding abilities. So going back to Cursor, I have the Cursor 3 already set up over here, and you can see I have a couple of projects. So the first thing I want to point out, with agentic coding, you're able to move a lot faster by working on many projects concurrently. So typically I have like 2 or 3 projects, and I'll kick off various prompts, and as long as those projects are running on different ports, you can actually have them loaded up, and you can easily test those changes in your browser at the same time. So in my case, I have an Ironbound Godot game I've been kind of working on. And after you add your projects, you can simply just kick off a new agent right here, and you can type in your traditional prompt inside the agent panel. Nothing much has changed about this. A lot of the stuff is still the same. It's more of a shift of where these things actually live. For example, you can select your models down here. I typically use Composer Too Fast for everything now. I do think it's my favorite model. And then if it can't get the job done, I will switch to GPT 5.4. I'm using Claude Code and Opus less and less these days. I do think it's still useful, but I've been kind of pivoting to use just, stuff directly inside a Cursor, which I think is a better user experience. But once you actually have your project selected, you can kick off a traditional prompt. Okay, so for example, here's a small little game. I've been kind of working on a top-down mining sim game. And there's a little bug in this game. Like when I'm walking around, sometimes the player will face up when he's like walking down. Like for example, when I go in this angle over here. So I'm probably going to try to prompt this to see if it can fix it. And we're going to be using GPT 5.4 to fix that. Okay, I'm going to take this screenshot of how I want the actual directions to work. So I have a circle that's kind of divided into 4 sections, up, down, left, right. I'm going to take this screenshot and I'm going to drop it over here into the panel. I will use GPT 5.4 because I do think this is a kind of a challenging bug that Composer Too Fast wasn't able to get. Right now, there seems to be a bug. When I try to walk around, sometimes the player will face up when I'm actually walking down. Can you go and reevaluate the angles and the directions of how this is all set up with the sprite animations and try to make sure it's accurate? See the attached image? I want those angles in the image to kind of represent when the player should be looking up, left, down, or right. So a little bug in my game, I can go ahead and kick this one off. Now, sometimes you can go to plan mode, so Shift Tab will take you into plan mode if you want, which sometimes is better to plan something out because it kind of lets the model think a little bit more thoroughly about the bug. So maybe I'll kick off a plan mode and we can kind of look at how that kind of works. Okay, so the plan is done. Now, you could probably read through this and make sure that the angles are correct, but I'm just going to go ahead and kick off the build for this. Now, sometimes I will switch it to Composer Too Fast after I plan it with a more intelligent model so that I can just kind of implement it faster. So we'll kind of do that and see if it actually fixes our issue. But let's go back to kind of checking out the changes of this right panel. So this is how you can actually go and view all your file changes. This is like your git diff view. You can click in the files. You can actually review what's changed. You can click them as reviewed and stage them to your Git stage. And then also you can commit them and push them directly to your repo if you want to. Over here you have the browser. So if you are working on a web application, which in this particular example I'm not, you can open up a web browser and do your inline editing there. Maybe I'll show that in a second. And then of course you have your traditional terminal. If you want to run some commands or start up a service, you can do that here inside your terminals. I do believe you can make multiple terminals. Yeah, so this is a list of multiple terminals. You can go ahead and open up more if you want. But overall, it's kind of like your IDE, like, your traditional VS Code or Cursor IDE, but stuff has just been kind of shifted around. Now, if you want to view all your files, you can click on this file icon and you can still look at your project this way. But overall, this is probably the main view you're going to want to watch, the git diff, and then also any of your plans that might pop up over here. So it's done running the plan and implementing it. Let's go back to our game and see if it fixes that. Now in Godot, you have to restart it to kind of get it working. So let's kind of click around and see. All right, so playing around with this, it does look like the angles are working, but for some reason it's using the wrong directions now. So I'm going to go back and try to just do another follow-up prompt on this so we can actually close out this plan. I think the issue is the sprite setup. So row 0 is down, Let's see, row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So row 4 is down, row 5 is up, row 6 is right, row 7 is left. Let's just go ahead and kick off that. I think it got a little bit confused at some point. I'm not sure how it kind of got lost in the sauce there, but let's just go ahead and let this fix my issue. Then when it's done, what we could kind of show you is the commit and the push. All right, let's see if this actually fixes it. Let's go back to the game one more time. We can just refresh it. New game. And now it looks like the angles are working much better than they were. So I can actually walk down, left, up, and left and right. Okay. Now over here, we're just going to commit and push this now. And you'll see it's basically committing to my main branch already. And then all my changes should be... actually, I don't have an origin set up, so it can't push. But now the changes have been persisted and we should be good to go. Now, one thing I will say that's missing is that there's no way to kick off these things into work trees. You might have to like manually prompt it to do a work tree. But in Cursor, there was a work tree feature. Now it seems like it's gone. If you've used Conductor or these other tools, typically you can actually do all this work on different work trees. But overall, I like to just do everything on main for side projects and commit those along the way. But on a larger scale project, for example, at work, typically you want to isolate your changes in separate branches. And you can test them if you're doing a bunch of work. So that's something that is either I'm not finding it or it's just missing from this Cursor 3 version right now, but I'm sure it's going to come in the future at some point. All right, the last thing I want to demo is another project with the inline browser. So if I go back to Pixel Crafter and make a new terminal over here, we can actually open this up. And I'm going to say npm run dev to start my application. And then we should be able to actually start prompting it right here inside of this if we want to. But the thing I want to kind of demo is now we have the application running. You can open it up inside of this inline browser over here. So you can use Cursor 3 as your browser and kind of keeps you stuck on the same screen, which is a nice user experience because before typically I'm doing a bunch of like screen shifting like this. But now I can actually just like pick on different things. If you enter design mode, you can then start clicking on different nodes and those automatically get added. For example, if I wanted to click on this bottom panel, which I guess I can't for some reason, I'm not sure what's going on there. But if I were to click on, I don't know, this panel, I can actually start doing inline edits and tell Cursor to change just this modal or just this panel or just this bottom thing. Now this already kind of existed in Cursor 2, but it's just kind of a different design of how it kind of works. So definitely check out these features. You also have your dev tools. You can go through here like a traditional looking at your network tab to see what requests the browser made, etc. Yeah, I think that's about the main updates with Cursor 3. The main shortcuts you want to remember is Command B to toggle out this left panel, Command Shift P to make a new Cursor agent. I don't think I talked about this, but Command Shift P lets you just basically quickly open up a new agent panel. After I've done that, I can't do it again for some reason, so that might be a little bug with Cursor they got to fix. But hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Let me know if there's a feature that I missed. Other than that, have a good day and happy coding.